A waitress told the Alpha King, "Sir, my mother has a tattoo just like yours." What happened next? The diner smelled of stale coffee and rain-soaked pavement, the kind of place people went to be forgotten. I was wiping down the counter, the fluorescent lights humming a headache into my temples, when he walked in. The air didn't just shift, it shattered. He took the corner booth, a man made of midnight and sharp angles, wearing a suit that cost more than this entire building. He rolled up his sleeves, exposing a forearm corded with muscle and scarring, and there it was. The ink was black as pitch, a serpent devouring a crown of thorns. My breath hitched, loud in the silence. I walked over, pot in hand, and made the mistake that would burn my world to ash. I poured his coffee and whispered, "Sir, my mother has a tattoo just like yours." He didn't smile. He locked the door. The silence that followed my words was heavier than the storm raging outside the windows of the Silver Spoon. It wasn't the awkward silence of a bad joke. It was the predatory silence of a wolf catching a scent. The man, whose name I would soon learn was Ulrich Stonecrest, slowly turned his head. His eyes were the color of shattered ice, terrifyingly pale against his dark hair. He didn't look at my face. He looked at my pulse point, which was fluttering like a trapped moth against the skin of my neck. "Repeat that," he commanded. His voice was a low rumble, felt in the chest rather than heard. Behind him, his companion shifted. This second man, Veridon Hawkwell, was leaner, with eyes that darted around the diner like he was calculating kill zones. "Ulrich," Veridon warned, his hand drifting inside his jacket. "It's a trap. We should leave." "Now, quiet, Veridon," Ulrich said, never breaking eye contact with me. He reached out, his fingers rough and incredibly hot, and gripped my wrist. It wasn't painful, but it was inescapable. "You said your mother has this mark, the Ouroboros of thorns." I tried to pull back, coffee sloshing over the rim of the pot in my other hand, burning my knuckles. I was too terrified to feel it. I didn't mean anything by it. It's just ink, please. Let go. It is never just ink, Ulrich snarled softly. He stood up, and his height was overwhelming. He blocked out the diner lights, casting me in his shadow. "Describe it." "Exactly. It's on her shoulder," I stammered, my instinct screaming at me to run, though my legs felt like lead. "A snake eating a crown. She covers it up mostly. She says it's a mistake from her youth." Ulrich's expression twisted not into anger, but something akin to haunting recognition. He looked at Veridon. "The seer said the bloodline ended. She lied. Oh, this girl is a lure." Veridon spat, standing up and locking the diner's front door. The sound of the deadbolt sliding home echoed like a gunshot. "Who sent you? The Southern Pack? The Rogues? I don't know what you're talking about," I cried, backing up until my spine hit the counter behind me. "I'm just a waitress. My name is Lysandra. Please, take the money in the register. Just go." Ulrich stepped closer, invading my personal space. The scent coming off him was intoxicating cedar, rain, and something metallic, like blood on iron. "I don't want your money, Lysandra. I want your mother." "No." The denial came out sharper than I intended. "She's sick. You can't go near her." Ulrich's eyes narrowed. He grabbed a napkin from the dispenser and a pen from his pocket. He scribbled something rapidly. It wasn't a phone number. It was a symbol, a geometric sigil that made my eyes water just looking at it. "If she has the mark," Ulrich said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, "then she is dying of a sickness no doctor can cure. Her veins are turning black. She wakes up screaming from dreams of fire." Am I wrong? The tray slipped from my fingers, clattering to the floor. "How? How do you know that?" "Because," Ulrich said, rolling his sleeve down, hiding the serpent. "That tattoo isn't art. It's a curse, and if she has it, she belongs to me." He didn't ask me to lead him there. He grabbed my coat from the hook by the kitchen door and threw it at me. "Take us to her, or I burn this city down until I find her myself." The drive to the outskirts of the city was a blur of rain-streaked asphalt and suffocating tension. I sat in the back of a sleek, black SUV that felt more like a tank than a car. Veridan drove with aggressive precision, his eyes constantly flicking to me in the rearview mirror with open hostility. Ulrich sat beside me. He didn't speak, but his presence was a physical weight. Every time the car turned, his shoulder brushed mine, sending jolts of static electricity through my nerves. "She's innocent, Ulrich," came a soft voice from the front passenger seat. I jumped. I hadn't realized there was a fourth person. A man with sandy blonde hair and wire-rimmed glasses turned to look at me. He looked nothing like the two predators. He looked like a librarian who had gotten lost in a war zone. This was Weistan Fairbloom. Innocent? Veridan scoffed from the driver's seat. "She smells like lavender and old magic. She's a witch's get, Weistan. Don't let the big eyes fool you. My mother isn't a witch," I snapped, fear giving way to defensiveness. "She was a history teacher before she got sick. History is written by the victors," Weistan said gently, though his eyes were sad, "and erased by the monsters." We pulled up to the small, dilapidated cottage where I lived with my mother, Merelda. The garden was overgrown, the paint peeling a stark contrast to the luxury vehicle idling in the driveway. "Stay here," Ulrich ordered Veridan. "Weistan, with me." I scrambled out of the car, rushing to the front door before they could kick it in. "Don't hurt her," I pleaded, fumbling with my keys. "She's weak." Ulrich waited for me to unlock the door, his posture rigid. When we stepped inside, the air was thick with the smell of medicinal herbs and the metallic tang of sickness. "Lysandra?" My mother's voice was a frail rasp from the back room. "Is that you? You're early." I rushed into her bedroom. She was sitting up in bed, pale as a ghost, the dark veins visible beneath her translucent skin. "Mom." I froze. Ulrich Stonecrest stood in the doorway of the bedroom. When Merelda saw him, the color didn't drain from her face, it had already been gone, but her eyes went wide with a terror so pure it stopped my heart. She didn't look at Ulrich's face. She looked at the signet ring on his finger. "The crest of the Alpha King. Stonecrest," she breathed, the name sounding like a curse. Ulrich walked into the room, the floorboards creaking under his boots. He looked at the frail woman in the bed, searching for something. "Show me," he commanded. Merelda's hands shook, but she pulled down the collar of her nightgown. There, on her left shoulder, was the mark. The serpent eating the crown. But unlike Ulrich's, which was stark black, hers was glowing a faint, sickly red. Ulrich let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for years. "It's true. The contract stands." I ran. Merelda wept, tears streaming down her hollow cheeks. I ran so far. I changed my name. I hid my scent. "You cannot hide from blood, Merelda," Ulrich said, his voice devoid of pity, yet strangely devoid of cruelty too. "You broke the oath. You stole the catalyst." "I saved her," Merelda screamed, lunging forward with shocking strength, grabbing my arm. "I saved her from you. From your father." I looked between them, confusion spinning my head. "Mom? What is he talking about? Who is the catalyst?" Ulrich turned his gaze to me. For the first time, I saw something other than cold command in his eyes. I saw hunger, not for food, not for sex, but for power. "You are," Ulrich said. Before I could react, the front door smashed open. Veridan shouted from the hallway. "Ulrich, rogues, they followed the scent." The windows of the cottage exploded inward. Shards of glass flew like diamonds in the dim light. Shadows poured into the room, but not men. They moved on all fours, their bones cracking and reshaping into fur and fang. "Get them out!" Ulrich roared, his suit jacket tearing at the seams as his own body began to expand, his eyes glowing a luminous gold. Weistan grabbed my mother, lifting her frail body as if she weighed nothing. "Lysandra, take my hand! We have to move!" I reached for my mother, but a massive, wolf-like creature lunged between us, snapping its jaws inches from my face. I screamed, stumbling back. Ulrich was there. He didn't shift fully, he was a hybrid of man and monster, claws tearing through the rogue wolf's throat with a brutality that made me gag. Blood sprayed across the floral wallpaper. "Go!" Ulrich bellowed, shoving me toward Weistan. "To the car! Now!" The journey back was a nightmare. My mother was unconscious in the back seat, her head in my lap. The SUV was tearing down the highway at 100 miles an hour. The windows were cracked, the wind howling, mixing with the metallic smell of blood that coated Ulrich's hands. We didn't go back to the city. We drove deep into the mountains, up winding roads that didn't appear on any GPS. We arrived at a fortress. It wasn't a castle from a fairy tale. It was a stronghold of black stone and brutalist architecture, built into the side of a cliff. This was Stonecrest Manor. Veredan parked the car, his hands shaking slightly on the wheel. That was too close. They knew exactly where she was. "Because the seal is breaking," Ulrich said, wiping blood from his cheek. He looked back at me. "Bring them inside. The east wing. Guard it with your life, Veredan." "I don't take orders from strays," Veredan muttered, eyeing me. But he opened the door and helped Weistan carry my mother. I was led through corridors of stone and velvet, the air cold and crisp. Servants bowed as we passed, not out of politeness, but out of fear. They averted their eyes from Ulrich. We were deposited in a suite of rooms that was larger than my entire cottage. Weistan laid my mother on a massive 4-poster bed and immediately began mixing powders from a satchel he carried. "She will stabilize," Weistan said softly to me. "But the bond is draining her. The further she is from the Alpha, the sicker she gets. Being here, it might buy her time." "Who are you people?" I whispered, shaking. "What are you?" "We are the lycanthropy aristocracy," a new voice answered. I turned to the door. A woman stood there. She was breathtakingly beautiful, with platinum blonde hair and eyes like polished emeralds. She wore a silk gown that clung to her curves like a second skin. This was Noravine. She glided into the room, ignoring me, and walked straight to Ulrich, who was standing by the window. She placed a hand on his chest. "You brought them here? Into our home? The council will demand heads, Ulrich." "Let them demand," Ulrich growled, stepping away from her touch. "She is the key, Noravine. Look at her." Noravine turned her cold gaze on me. She sniffed the air delicately, her lip curling. She smells of diner grease and fear. "This is the weapon? The great catalyst?" "She is the daughter of the Oathbreaker," Ulrich said. "And she is my mate." The room went dead silent. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Mate? I don't know you." "Biology does not require an introduction," Ulrich said, turning to face me. "The tattoo on your mother's arm is a binding spell. It transferred the life force of my father to her, to keep her hidden. But the price was that her firstborn would belong to the Stonecrest line." "I belong to no one," I said, my voice trembling but defiant. Noravine laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Oh, you poor thing. You think you have a choice. You are in the Alpha's den now." "Enough," Ulrich commanded. "Noravine, get out. Weistan, tend to the mother. Veredan, secure the perimeter." "And the girl?" Veredan asked. "The girl stays with me," Ulrich said. As the room cleared, leaving only me and the Alpha King, the atmosphere shifted. The violence of the fight was gone, replaced by a suffocating intimacy. Ulrich walked toward me, slowly. He stopped inches away, looking down at me. He reached out and touched my chin, tilting my head up. His thumb traced my lower lip. The contact sent a shockwave through me that curled my toes. I hated him. I feared him. And yet, my body leaned into his touch. "You have no mark," Ulrich murmured, inspecting my skin. "Your mother took the burden of the ink, but you carry the magic." "What do you want from me?" I whispered. "My kingdom is dying, Lysandra," he said, his voice rough with exhaustion. "A rot is spreading through the packs. Madness, infertility, war. The prophecy says that the blood of the traitor, mixed with the blood of the king, will reset the balance." I pulled back, horror dawning. "You want to kill me?" Ulrich's eyes flashed gold. "No. If I wanted you dead, you would never have left the diner." He leaned down, his lips brushing my ear. I don't need your death. I need your submission. I need you to take the mark willingly. And if I refuse, then your mother dies tonight, he said simply. And the rot takes us all. He pulled back, leaving me cold and trembling. He walked to the door, pausing with his hand on the latch. Rest, Lysandra. Tomorrow, the trials begin. You will prove if you are truly the catalyst or just another disappointment. He left, locking the heavy oak door from the outside. I ran to the window, looking out. We were hundreds of feet up, surrounded by sheer cliffs and forests that seemed to breathe in the moonlight. I was trapped in a castle of monsters. My mother was dying, and the most dangerous monster of all claimed I was his mate. I looked at my reflection in the dark glass. I looked the same messy bun, diner uniform, tired eyes, but I felt different. A fire was kindling in my chest, born of anger and survival. I am not a disappointment, I whispered to the night, and I am not a victim. Below, in the shadows of the courtyard, a pair of golden eyes watched my window, glowing in the dark. The sun did not rise over Stonecrest Manor. It merely bruised the sky, a deep, resentful purple. I hadn't slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the Rouge Wolf's jaws snapping, or the golden fire in Ulrich's eyes. My door unlocked with a heavy clack. It wasn't a servant who entered, but Veridon. He was dressed in tactical gear, a stark contrast to the velvet drapes and antique furniture of my prison. Get up, he said, tossing a bundle of clothes onto the foot of the bed. It was a simple white linen shift, thin and ceremonial. The council has gathered. The first trial begins in the hour. I'm not putting that on, I said, clutching the duvet tighter. I'm not some sacrifice. Veridon leaned against the doorframe, crossing his arms. Technically, that's exactly what you are. If you don't pass the trial, the magic in your blood will boil you alive. The shift makes it easier to clean up the mess. I swallowed the lump of fear in my throat. Where is Ulrich? The king is preparing the altar. He isn't allowed to see you before the ritual. It weakens the bond. Veridon's eyes softened, just a fraction. Look, Waitress, you want to save your mother? Put on the dress. Survive the morning. Then you can argue. I dressed with trembling hands. The linen was cold against my skin. When I was ready, Veridon led me down a spiral staircase that seemed to drill into the heart of the mountain. The air grew colder, smelling of damp earth and ancient incense. We emerged into a cavernous circular room lit by torches. In the center stood a slab of obsidian, the altar. Surrounding it were 5 figures in grey robes, their faces hidden by cowls. The council, and there was Ulrich. He stood shirtless by the altar, his skin painted with white clay symbols that glowed faintly in the gloom. The scars on his chest stood out in sharp relief. When he saw me, his jaw tightened. He looked like a statue carved from pain. Approach, rasped one of the council members. I walked forward, my bare feet silent on the stone. I stopped across the altar from Ulrich. Up close, I could see the sweat beading on his forehead. He was in pain. The girl claims the blood of the catalyst, the elder intoned. But blood can be stolen. Magic can be faked. The stone knows truth. Ulrich held out his hand over the obsidian slab. Give me your hand, Lysandra. I hesitated. What is going to happen? Trust me, he whispered. It was the first time he had sounded human since the diner. Do not let go, no matter what you feel. I placed my hand in his. His grip was iron tight. The elder began to chant in a guttural language that vibrated in my teeth. The obsidian slab beneath our joined hands began to hum. Suddenly, a searing heat shot through my palm, racing up my arm like liquid fire. I screamed, trying to yank my hand away, but Ulrich held fast. Hold on, he gritted out, his own face twisting in agony. The white symbols on his chest flared blindingly bright. My vision went white. I wasn't in the cave anymore. I was standing in a field of ash. A giant serpent, the size of a train, was coiled around a burning tower. It turned its massive head toward me and hissed, "Thief, vessel, breaker, It struck. I gasped, snapping back to reality. The pain was gone, replaced by a cold numbness. I fell to my knees, gasping for air. Ulrich was still standing, but he was swaying. The elder stepped forward, peering at our joined hands. Where our palms had met, a new mark had appeared on my skin, a single, silver thorn. "She survives the contact," the elder announced, sounding disappointed. "The catalyst accepts the Alpha's current, but the bond is weak. She is terrified." "She is strong," Ulrich snarled, pulling me to my feet. He wrapped a heavy cloak around my shivering shoulders. "The first trial is done. Clear the room. There are 2 more trials." King Stonecrest. Noravine's voice drifted from the shadows. She stepped into the torchlight, looking impeccable and bored. "And the next one requires more than just holding hands. She will have to bleed for the pack." Ulrich ignored her, scooping me up into his arms. I was too exhausted to protest. "You did well," he murmured into my hair as he carried me out of the suffocating chamber. "I saw a snake," I whispered, my head resting against his bare, warm chest. "In the fire, it called me a thief." Ulrich stiffened. "Rest now, Lysandra. You saw the Guardian. The fact that it didn't eat your soul means we have a chance." 3 days passed before I was allowed to leave my room again. The silver thorn on my palm didn't fade. It shimmered like a fresh scar. The manor was a labyrinth. I wandered the halls, followed by a silent guard, trying to piece together the reality of my new life. My mother was still comatose in the West Wing, tended to by Wystan. He told me she was stable, but the connection to the curse was deep. She wouldn't wake until the trials were over, one way or another. I found myself in the library, a 2-story room filled with books that looked older than civilization. Wystan was there, perched on a ladder. "Ah, our resident mystery." Wystan smiled, adjusting his glasses. "How is the hand?" "It tingles," I said, rubbing the mark. "Wystan, tell me the truth. What is the rot?" Wystan sighed, climbing down. He poured 2 cups of tea from a silver service on a desk. "Wolf packs are bound by a spiritual ecosystem. The Alpha is the sun, the pack is the earth. But Ulrich's bloodline, it was cursed 3 generations ago. A king tried to steal power from the Fae. The Fae cursed him with the rot. It eats the magic. Pups are born still. Wounds don't heal. Eventually, the wolves go feral. And the catalyst? A biological counter-curse," Wystan explained. "Your mother was a genetic anomaly. Her blood could filter the poison. But she ran away before the bonding ritual could be completed. She stole the cure." "She didn't steal it," I said hotly. "She is a person, not a medicine. To Ulrich, she is both." A deep voice interrupted. Ulrich stood in the doorway. He was dressed in a charcoal sweater and dark jeans, looking less like a king and more like a man weary of the world. He signaled the guard to leave. "Wystan, leave us," Ulrich commanded. Wystan bowed and hurried out, taking his tea with him. Ulrich walked over to the fireplace, staring into the flames. "You have questions. Ask them." "Why me?" I asked, standing my ground. "Why not just force my mother to finish the ritual?" "Because she is broken," Ulrich said without turning. "The bond would kill her instantly now. You are young. Your magic is dormant, but potent. You can survive the transfer. And after?" I took a step toward him. "After I cure your rot, do I get to go back to the diner? Do I get a pension?" Ulrich turned, a dark amusement dancing in his eyes. "You think you can go back? You have seen the face of the wolf, Lysandra. You are part of this world now. If you save the pack, you become the queen." I laughed, a harsh, jagged sound. "I don't want to be a queen. I want to be free." Ulrich crossed the room in 2 strides, stopping right in front of me. The heat radiating from him was intoxicating. He reached out, tucking a stray lock of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered on my neck. "Freedom is a myth," he said softly. "I am the most powerful creature on this continent, and I cannot leave this mountain without risking war. I cannot sleep without dreaming of my people dying. We are all cages, Lysandra. The only choice is who holds the key. My breath hitched. The attraction was a physical pull, a magnetic force that defied logic. I looked up at him, into those shattered ice eyes, and saw the loneliness behind the monster. "I won't let you use me," I whispered, though my voice lacked conviction. "I don't want to use you," Ulrich murmured, leaning down. His lips were inches from mine. "I want to know you. You faced the Guardian and didn't flinch. No one has done that in a century." The air between us crackled. I found myself leaning in, my eyes fluttering shut. Crash. The library doors burst open. Noravine stood there, flanked by 2 large enforcers. Her eyes blazed with fury. "My king," she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "The Southern Pack has arrived for the Solstice Ball. You are needed. Or were you too busy playing with your food?" Ulrich pulled away, the moment shattering like glass. His face hardened into the mask of the Alpha. "I will be there, Noravine. Get out." He looked back at me, the warmth gone. "Tonight is the second trial. It takes place at the ball. Wear something red. It hides the blood." The ballroom was a sea of velvet, diamonds, and teeth. The elite of the werewolf world had gathered under the guise of a masquerade. The air smelled of expensive perfume and raw aggression. I wore the dress Veridon had left me, a crimson silk gown that left my back bare and trailed on the floor like a pool of blood. It was beautiful, and it felt like a target. I stood by the buffet table, clutching a glass of champagne I didn't drink. I felt the eyes on me. They knew who I was. The human, the cure, the usurper. "Smile," Veridon muttered, appearing at my elbow. "You look like you're at a funeral." "Maybe I am," I retorted. "What is the trial? Do I have to fight one of them?" "Worse," Veridon said, scanning the crowd. "You have to survive the politics. The second trial is a test of wit and instinct. The Southern Alpha, Kalen, wants the Stonecrest lands. He will try to provoke you into breaking guest right. If you insult him, Ulrich has to kill you to keep the peace." "Great," I muttered. "No pressure." Across the room, Ulrich sat on a raised dais. He wore a black suit with a gold mask. Noravine sat beside him, her hand possessively on his arm. She whispered something in his ear, and he didn't pull away. A pang of jealousy, sharp and irrational, stabbed my chest. A man separated from the crowd and approached me. He was huge, with a thick beard and eyes that gleamed with malice. "Kalen." "So," Kalen boomed, drawing the attention of the nearby guests. "This is the little miracle?" "She looks fragile, like a twig ready to snap. Appearances can be deceiving," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I hear the Southern Pack values strength above all. It must be exhausting to compensate so much." The crowd went silent. Veridon stiffened beside me. Kalen's smile vanished. "You have a sharp tongue, girl. Let's see if your blood is as sweet." He reached out, his hand transforming into a clawed paw mid-air, aiming for my throat. It wasn't a duel. It was an execution. Time slowed. I didn't think. I didn't scream. A surge of heat erupted from the silver thorn on my palm. I threw my hand up, instinct taking over. Boom! A shockwave of invisible force blasted from my hand. It hit Kalen in the chest, lifting his 300-pound frame off the floor and hurling him backward. He crashed into a table of hors d'oeuvre, shattering crystal and wood. The silence that followed was absolute. I stared at my hand, smoke rising from the thorn mark. I had done that? Ulrich was on his feet in an instant. "Enough!" Kalen roared, scrambling up, his face covered in dip and glass. "She used magic. That is an act of war. She is a witch. She is the catalyst." Ulrich's voice thundered, shaking the chandeliers. He leaped from the dais, landing between me and the enraged Southern Alpha. "And she is under my protection. She attacked a guest!" Noravine shrieked, standing up. "Ulrich, the law is clear. She must be punished." "He attacked me first," I shouted, adrenaline flooding my veins. The room began to vibrate. The shadows in the corners of the ballroom stretched and twisted. The rot. It was reacting to the violence. Black veins began to creep up the white marble columns. Guests screamed as the lights flickered and died. "The seal is breaking!" Weistan shouted from the balcony. "The magic surge was too strong." "Evacuate," Ulrich ordered. He turned to me, grabbing my shoulders. "What did you do?" "I don't know," I cried. "I just wanted him to stop." "You tapped into the manor's ley lines," Ulrich said, looking at me with a mix of awe and terror. "You didn't just push him, Lysandra. You commanded the gravity of the mountain." A low growl echoed through the dark room. But it didn't come from a wolf. It came from the shadows themselves. Shapes began to form, creatures made of black sludge and rot, eyes burning red. Shadow stalkers, Veridan cursed, drawing a silver knife. "The rot has manifested." "Get behind me," Ulrich commanded, his body shifting, bones cracking as the alpha wolf took over. But I didn't hide. The fire in my chest was burning hotter than ever. The silver thorn on my hand pulsed in time with my heart. I looked at the encroaching monsters, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small. I felt dangerous. "No," I said, stepping up beside the massive black wolf that was Ulrich. "You protect the pack. I'll handle the ghosts." The alpha turned his massive head toward me, a growl of warning in his throat, but I raised my glowing hand. "Light it up," I whispered, and the ballroom exploded into white fire. The darkness shrieked, a sound of tearing metal, as the shadow stalkers disintegrated under the holy brilliance of the catalyst. The windows blew out, raining glass like diamonds into the night. But inside, the fire did not burn, it purified. When the light faded, silence reclaimed the hall. The black veins on the columns were gone. The creatures were ash. And everyone, Noravine, Kalen, the council was staring at me. Not with contempt, but with fear. Ulrich shifted back, breathing hard, his eyes locked on mine. "The second trial," he breathed, awe softening his rugged features. "Passed." The silence in Stonecrest Manor had changed texture. It was no longer the heavy, suffocating blanket of fear that had greeted me upon my arrival. Now, it was a silence of held breath, of reverence bordering on religious awe. When I walked down the long, tapestry-lined corridors, the servants didn't just bow. They stopped, dead in their tracks, pressing hands to their hearts, their eyes wide as they watched the light-bringer pass. I wasn't just the waitress from the Silver Spoon anymore. I was the woman who had commanded the light and banished the shadows. But power came with a price, a physical toll I was only beginning to understand. The silver thorn on my palm didn't just exist. It lived. It burned constantly, a dull, throbbing ache that radiated up my forearm, a reminder that the magic was borrowed, or perhaps awakening too fast. It was a countdown. The final trial wasn't just looming. It was hunting us. I found my mother awake, sitting in a high-backed velvet chair in the West Wing's solarium. Weistan had moved her here so the fresh mountain air could reach her lungs. She looked frail, her skin translucent against the dark fabric, but her eyes, usually clouded with the delirium of the sickness, were startlingly clear. "Lysandra," she whispered, the sound like dry leaves skittering on pavement. She reached out with a trembling hand. "You shouldn't be here. You should have run when you had the chance." I knelt beside her, taking her cold hand in mine. It felt terrifyingly fragile, like bird bones wrapped in parchment. "I'm done running, Mom. I'm done hiding who we are. We're going to fix this. I'm going to cure the rot." Marelda's grip tightened with shocking strength, her nails digging into my skin. "You don't understand, little bird. The cure isn't a spell you cast. It's not a potion Weistan can brew. It's a sacrifice." Her eyes filled with tears. "That's why I left. That's why I changed our names and scrubbed floors for 20 years. The third trial. It doesn't just ask for blood. It asks for the heart." "What do you mean?" I asked, a chill settling in my stomach that had nothing to do with the drafty castle. Before she could answer, the heavy oak doors creaked open. Ulrich entered. He looked like a man walking to his own execution. Shadows bruised the delicate skin beneath his eyes, and his jaw was set in a line of grim determination. He wore his crown, a jagged band of dark iron that looked more like a weapon of war than a piece of jewelry. It seemed to weigh him down, pressing the alpha aura into something dense and tragic. "We need to talk," he said, his voice devoid of the warmth he had shown me in the library. It was the king speaking now, not the man. He led me up a winding stone staircase to the battlements, the highest point of the manor, far above the cloud line. The wind here was ferocious, whipping my hair across my face and stinging my eyes. But Ulrich stood unmoving, a statue carved from resolve and regret. Below us, the forest stretched out like a dark ocean, restless and whispering. "The council is demanding the third trial commence tonight," Ulrich said, gripping the stone parapet until his knuckles turned white. The surge of magic at the ball. It accelerated the rot. The barrier keeping the madness at bay is failing. My men are reporting nightmares becoming real in the lower valleys. "I'm ready," I said, though my stomach churned with bile. I handled the shadow stalkers. "I can handle this. What do I have to do? Fight a dragon? Walk on fire? Just tell me." Ulrich turned to me, and the raw, unguarded pain in his eyes took my breath away. It was the look of a wolf caught in a trap, knowing the only escape was to chew off its own limb. "You have to kill me." The wind seemed to stop. The world tilted on its axis. "What?" "The rot is bound to the Alpha's bloodline," Ulrich explained, his voice cracking, the roughness of unshed tears breaking his composure. "It lives in the marrow of my bones. It pumps through my heart. The catalyst cannot just scrub it away from the outside. You have to stop the engine that pumps the poison. You must plunge a dagger of weirwood into my chest. As I die, you will absorb the king's spirit. You will become the Alpha, and the rot will die with my body." I stepped back, shaking my head violently. No. That's insane. That's not a cure. That's murder. I came here to save you, not to butcher you on some stone table. "It is the only way," Ulrich roared, the sound tearing from his throat, raw and animalistic. He grabbed my shoulders, shaking me, desperate to make me understand. "Do you think I want this? Do you think I want to leave my people? To leave you?" His voice broke. "But if we do nothing, everyone dies. The madness takes them all. My death buys their future. It buys your future." "I don't want a future without you," I sobbed, the confession ripping out of me. "I won't do it. I love you." The words hung in the thin, cold air, fragile and terrifying. Ulrich froze. His expression crumbled, the mask of the stoic king shattering to reveal the terrified man underneath. He pulled me into him, burying his face in the crook of my neck. He smelled of rain, cedar, and deep, crushing despair. His body shook against mine. "Don't love me, Lysandra," he whispered into my skin. "A plea to the gods. Please, don't make this harder. It will only make the blade heavier." We stood there, wrapped in each other, two doomed souls on the edge of the world, while the storm gathered above us. But we were not alone. From the deep shadows of the turret, Noravine watched. Her beautiful face was twisted into a mask of pure, distilled hatred. She had heard everything. She fingered the vial in her pocket essence of nightshade and wolfsbane, a poison forbidden by the old laws. "If she won't kill him," Noravine whispered to the howling wind, her eyes gleaming with a manic light, "then I will save the kingdom myself, and I will take the crown that has always belonged to me." The third trial took place in the crypts, deep beneath the mountain where the first Stonecrest king was buried. It was a place where light went to die. The air was frigid, heavy with the scent of damp earth and ancient decay. The stone walls wept moisture, the droplets echoing in the vast, hollow silence. The council stood in a circle, their grey robes blending with the shadows. They began a low, rhythmic chanting that vibrated in my teeth. In the center of the room lay a stone table, carved with runic channels designed to catch and direct blood. A weirwood dagger, white as polished bone and sharp as a razor, lay on a velvet cloth. It pulsed with a faint, hungry light, Ulrich lay on the table, his shirt removed. His chest rose and fell rhythmically, the scar tissue standing out in the torchlight. He looked at me with a heartbreaking resignation. "Do it quickly, Lysandra. Don't hesitate. Strike true." I picked up the dagger. It was impossibly heavy, vibrating with ancient intent. It felt wrong in my hand, an object made for ending things, not fixing them. My hand shook so hard I almost dropped it. "I can't," I whispered, the tears hot on my face. "There has to be another way." Weistan said, "The magic adapts." "There is no other way," the elder shouted, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling. "The moon is at its zenith. The rot is breaching the gates. Strike now, or you condemn us all to madness." I raised the dagger, my arm screaming in protest. Ulrich closed his eyes, tilting his head back to expose his chest. Suddenly, the torches flickered and died, plunging us into near darkness. A cold, unnatural wind swept through the crypt, smelling of ozone and ozone. "How touching," a voice sneered from the darkness. Romeo and Juliet, right to the bitter end. Noravine stepped into the circle of moonlight, filtering from the ventilation shaft above. She looked radiant and terrible, her gown flowing around her like liquid smoke. But she wasn't alone. Behind her, 5 massive wolves prowled out of the shadows, the rogues. Their fur was matted, their bodies twisted, and their eyes glowed with a sickly, radioactive green light. "Noravine!" Veridon shouted, drawing his silver sword with a metallic ring. "What is the meaning of this? These are enemies of the crown. You bring filth into the royal crypt? They are my allies." Noravine laughed, a sound like breaking glass. She tossed a glass vial onto the ground. It shattered, releasing a purple mist that made the council members cough and stumble. "Since the Waitress lacks the stomach to do what is necessary, I will take the burden. I will kill the king. I will absorb the power, and I will rule this pack as it deserves to be ruled with strength, not sentiment." "You cannot handle the Alpha Spirit," Ulrich shouted, sitting up on the altar, his eyes flashing gold. "It will tear you apart. You are not the catalyst." "Watch me," Noravine hissed. She gestured, and the rogues lunged. The crypt erupted into chaos. Veridon and the royal guards clashed with the rogues, claws meeting steel, sparks flying in the gloom. The sound of snarling and tearing flesh filled the chamber. Noravine didn't fight the guards. She sprinted toward the table, a jagged obsidian knife in her hand. Her target wasn't Ulrich, it was me. "If the catalyst dies," she shrieked, leaping over the stone altar, "the bond breaks, and the power is free for the taking." She was fast. Too fast. I tried to raise the weirwood dagger to defend myself, but she kicked it from my hand. It clattered across the stone floor, sliding out of reach. She tackled me, her momentum driving the air from my lungs. My head cracked against the cold stone floor, black spots dancing in my vision. "Die, human," she spat, her face inches from mine, eyes manic with lust for power. Her hands closed around my throat, squeezing with werewolf strength. I gasped for air, clawing at her arms, but it was like trying to move marble. "Lysandra!" Ulrich roared. I looked over. He was fighting 2 rogues at once, his body shifting between man and wolf, ripping through them with desperate, lethal fury. He was trying to get to me, but he was surrounded. I was going to die, here, in the dark, while the man I loved watched. My hand scrabbled against the floor, fingers searching for anything, a rock, a shard of glass. My fingertips brushed against cold, smooth wood. The weirwood dagger. I gripped it. The wood felt warm now, responsive to my touch. Noravine raised her obsidian knife high for the killing blow. "For the pack!" she screamed. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. Survival instinct took over. I drove the weirwood dagger upward, into her side, aiming for the gap in her ribs. Noravine gasped, the sound wet and sudden. Her eyes went wide. She froze, the obsidian knife hovering inches from my face. She looked down at the white blade buried in her body. "You," she wheezed, blood bubbling past her lips. But it wasn't just a wound. The weirwood dagger was enchanted to absorb spirit and magic. It began to glow with a blinding white light. Noravine screamed a sound that wasn't human as her life force and the stolen dark magic she had been hoarding were sucked into the blade. She collapsed backward, her body dissolving into ash before she even hit the ground. I scrambled up, coughing, the glowing dagger in my hand. It was vibrating violently now, humming with a chaotic energy. The rogues, seeing their leader destroyed, hesitated. Veridan finished the last one with a brutal, efficient swipe of his sword. Silence fell over the crypt, heavy and stunned. Ulrich stumbled toward me, covered in blood that wasn't his. He looked at the dagger, then at me, horror dawning on his face. "The blade has fed," the elder whispered, stepping forward, his face pale as death. "But not on the king. The ritual is altered. The energy is trapped." I looked at the dagger. It was pulsing with a violent, unstable light. It was full of energy, but it had nowhere to go. It needed a vessel. "The rot is still here," Ulrich said, doubling over as a wave of black veins shot up his neck, moving faster than ever before. The exertion of the fight had shattered the last of his defenses. He fell to his knees, coughing up black ichor onto the pristine stone. "Ulrich!" I dropped the dagger and fell beside him, grabbing his shoulders. He was freezing cold. "It's too late," he rasped, his skin turning grey, the light fading from his eyes. "The ritual failed. The rot. It's taking me." "Get back, Lysandra. Run." The crypt seemed to shrink, the walls closing in like a coffin. Ulrich was dying in my arms. The black veins were spreading to his face, claiming his eyes, turning the beautiful ice blue into a void of darkness. "No," I said, my voice shaking but my resolve hardening like diamond. "I didn't come this far to lose you. I didn't survive the fire and the politics and the monsters just to watch you die. Run, Lysandra," he whispered, his voice barely audible, a ghost of a sound. "When I turn, I won't know you. I will kill you." I looked at the weeping tattoo on his arm, the serpent eating the crown. It was moving. The ink was writhing under his skin, 3D and terrifying, trying to break free. Then I looked at my own palm. The silver thorn. It was glowing in sync with the dagger. Weistan said, "I am the catalyst," I said, a realization hitting me like a lightning bolt. A catalyst doesn't just start a reaction. It changes the substance without being consumed. It creates a new path. I grabbed the weirwood dagger, still glowing with the volatile energy it had stolen from Noravine. "What are you doing?" Veridan shouted, stepping forward. "Rewriting the contract," I said. I didn't stab Ulrich. I took the blade and sliced my own palm, right through the silver thorn mark. The pain was blinding, but I welcomed it. Blood welled up bright, red, human blood, mixed with the silver light of my magic. I threw the dagger aside. It clattered away, its job done. I slammed my bleeding, glowing hand onto Ulrich's chest, directly over his stopping heart. "I invoke the blood of the mother," I screamed, the words tearing from my throat, ancient and commanding. "I invoke the debt. I do not take the spirit. I share the burden. Take my magic. Take it all." "Lysandra, stop!" Ulrich groaned, trying to push me away, his claws scraping my arms. "It will kill you. Then we die together." I poured everything I had into him. I didn't hold back a single spark. Every ounce of the strange power I had felt in the ballroom, every bit of life force I possessed, every memory of the diner and my mother and the rain. I visualized the white fire. I pushed it into his black, rotting heart. The reaction was cataclysmic. A pillar of pure, blinding light erupted from us. It blasted through the ceiling of the crypt, shooting up through the rock of the mountain, piercing the night sky like a beacon. I wasn't in the crypt anymore. I was in the mind space of the Alpha. It was a landscape of charred forests and black rivers. And there, coiled around the heart of the world, was the serpent of the rot. It lunged at me, jaws wide, dripping with malice. "You are weak," the serpent hissed, its voice 1,000 screaming souls. "You are nothing. You are a waitress. You are prey." I stood my ground in the mental wasteland. I looked at the monster that had plagued his family for generations. I am not nothing, I thought back, my voice becoming the roar of a hurricane. I am his mate, and I am the queen. I didn't fight the serpent with claws. I grabbed it with my light. I burned it. In the physical world, I leaned down and pressed my lips to Ulrich's. It wasn't a kiss of romance. It was a seal, a completion of a circuit, positive and negative, human and wolf. The silver light exploded. The serpent on Ulrich's arm shrieked an audible, high-pitched sound that shattered the stone table beneath us. The black ink dissolved, steaming away like water on a hot griddle. The veins on his neck receded, chased back by the flush of healthy blood. The rot was burned out, but the cost was paid. My vision went grey. The cold crept in from my fingertips. I felt my heart stutter, skip, and stop. I collapsed onto Ulrich's chest, the darkness taking me, smiling because I knew he was warm. She's breathing, barely. The strain was immense. Her heart stopped for 2 minutes. Look at her hand. The voices were distant, muffled as if underwater. I drifted toward them. I opened my eyes. The world was blurry, then sharpened. I was lying in a soft bed, buried in furs. Sunlight real. Warm sunlight was streaming through the window, smelling of pine and morning. I tried to sit up, but a strong arm wrapped around my waist, holding me gently but possessively. Easy. A deep voice rumbled against my back. I looked up. Ulrich. He looked. Transformed. The lines of pain and exhaustion around his mouth were gone. His skin was healthy, glowing with vitality. His eyes were no longer the color of shattered ice or rot. They were a clear, brilliant blue, like a summer sky. And his arm. I reached out and touched his forearm. The tattoo was gone. The serpent was dead. In its place was a faint, white scar in the shape of a rose wrapped around a sword. "You're alive," I croaked, my voice rough. "Because of you," Ulrich said, his voice thick with emotion. He brushed the hair from my face, his touch reverent. "You broke the cycle, Lysandra. You didn't just cure the rot. You destroyed the curse entirely. You rewrote the magic of the pack." I looked at my own hand. The silver thorn was gone. My skin was smooth, save for a thin white line across my palm where I had cut myself. "My mother?" I asked, panic flaring briefly. "She is downstairs," Ulrich smiled. A genuine, dazzling smile I had never seen before, a smile that made him look 10 years younger. "Eating breakfast with Weistan. She woke up the moment the curse broke. She is already critiquing the castle's tea selection." I leaned back into the pillows, tears of relief leaking from my eyes. "It's over? Really over?" Ulrich kissed my forehead, then my lips. "The curse is over. The fear is over. But our reign, that is just beginning." He pulled me close, and for the first time since I walked into the diner and saw the man with the serpent tattoo, I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel like a victim or a pawn. I felt like a queen. They say that love conquers all, but that isn't quite true. Love is messy. It is dangerous. It demands that you bleed for it. It demands that you stand in the dark and ignite your own soul to keep the shadows at bay. I was just a waitress wiping tables, waiting for my life to start. I didn't ask for a crown, and I certainly didn't ask for a curse. But destiny doesn't ask for permission. It walks through the door, orders a black coffee, and dares you to keep up. Ulrich and I rebuilt the kingdom, not on the bones of the past, but on the strength of our bond. We ruled not with fear, but with the understanding that even monsters deserve to be saved. The manor is no longer a place of silence. It is filled with life, with pack members from all over coming to see the alpha who survived and the queen who saved him. And sometimes, when the storms roll in and the thunder shakes the castle walls, I look at the white scar on his arm and remember the girl I used to be. The girl who was afraid of the dark. I'm not afraid anymore, because I know that the brightest light isn't the sun, It's the fire you light within yourself when the whole world tries to snuff you out. So, if a stranger walks into your life with a secret written on their skin, don't look away. You might just find your own story written there too. If you enjoyed this story of curses, kings, and courageous love, please give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend who needs a little magic today. Don't forget to subscribe for more tales from the Wolf Court. Until next time, keep your eyes open, you never know who is walking through the door.